Good morning, English 9 students. This is Miss Cat, and this is a video to show you the lesson for Monday, November 9th. So we're starting here on Canvas, and we're going to look at our Canvas front page for this week. So we're going to click on English 9, and we're going to read the weekly message. So the weekly message says, this week we will learn about a literary term called irony. We will read a short story and a poem that uses irony. Here's a link to the slideshow that we will use this week. Okay, so if you click on this link, it will take you to the slideshow that I will use to be teaching you this week. Okay. So scrolling down, you can see that there is a table that lets you know what you need to do each day of this week. Okay, so here is Monday, and notice that A group activities are in orange and B group activities are in pink. Okay, so B group is going to focus on the pink sections of this table. So it says Monday, and under B group it says please make a copy of the Google Doc that we will use this week. Today we will learn from pages 1 through 4 of the doc. Okay, so please click here to make a copy. Okay, make your own copy. After you have made a copy, please write your name. Okay, so delete the word copy of and write your name. Okay, like Richard's gonna write Richard. And then please share it with me. Okay, so my email is haxton.cat@iowicityschools.org. Okay, go ahead and send that along. And take a look at the first few pages that we are going to look at today. Okay. So you're going to watch this video, and this is the one that I'm making right now, to learn about the literary term called irony. Okay, tomorrow, you will complete page 3, which is to read a poem and try to find the irony in the poem. Okay, and then after you do that, you will record a little Flipgrid video explaining your thoughts on the poem. Okay. Then by Wednesday, we should be back in school. Okay. So you've made your copy, okay, you're ready to go. You can see in the pages for Monday, there are some notes from my slides, and that's it. There's nothing that you need to write. You just need to listen to the lesson and study these notes in your Google Doc. So we are beginning today a new unit. We are done with our biography unit, and we are done with our autobiography writing unit. Okay, we're all done. And we're moving into a new unit called the short story unit. In this unit, we are going to read some short stories, and we're going to examine or look very carefully at ways that writers make stories interesting, and they make stories really meaningful. So I'm sure that you've had the experience of reading a story that you found very boring, and you didn't understand what the point was, and the story didn't really speak to you. Okay. On the other hand, I'm sure that you've read things, poems and stories that have meant so much to you. It's almost like the story was written for you. It was so interesting, and it really meant a lot to you, and it was very beautiful. And during this unit, we are going to look at some of the ways that writers can make stories very interesting and very meaningful. And hopefully you can use these things in your writing to make your writing more special, and you can look for these things in stories that you read in the future. Okay, so the first way that some writers make their stories very interesting and meaningful is by using a literary device called irony. Okay, and what I mean by a literary device is just a strategy or a technique that a writer uses in his or her writing. Okay, so it's kind of a writing strategy. And irony is when something looks or seems a certain way, but when you look closer under the surface and you find out more, you realize it's actually not that way at all. Okay, so irony is this difference between what we expect to be there what is expected, and then what is really there underneath, what is really true. That's irony. So, in summary, you could say irony is when something is very different from the way it appears. So, look at this sign. This is supposed to be kind of a funny example. So, at the top, it says always open. Okay, so we expect that the store will always be open. But then underneath, it says closed. Okay, we would say that's ironic. Okay, that's an example of irony. That's ironic because the sign that says closed is very different from what we would expect. We would expect it to always be open. Okay, so that's an example of irony. Now, there are three types of irony that we are going to discuss in class. One of the types is called situational irony. So, situational irony happens in a story when the author leads you to believe that something is going to happen. So, an author sets up a situation where you, the reader, have a certain expectation for how the story is going to end. But the writer does not end the story in a way that you expect. There's a twist or a surprise ending. Okay? And something in the story happens that you do not expect to happen. That is situational irony. So if you look at the picture, okay, you see some scary monsters and you see a little boy. And in this situation, we would expect that the boy would be scared of the monsters. But actually, you can see the monsters are saying, oh, kids are terrifying. Okay, the monster is afraid of the kid. Okay, that's situational irony because it is something unexpected and surprising. The next kind of irony is called verbal irony. And if you're familiar with the word verbal, verbal has to do with words. Okay, so this type of irony has to do with words that are said. So verbal irony is when the meaning, the actual meaning behind the words, is the opposite of their definition. Okay, so another word for verbal irony that we use sometimes is sarcasm. So sarcasm is when you say something, but what you mean is actually the opposite. Okay, so you see the picture of the man and he is having a really bad day. He's so frustrated. And someone asks him how he is, and he says, I'm fine. Okay, he's not really fine. Really, he's the opposite of fine. Okay, so his words are ironic. They are an example of verbal irony. He says, I'm fine, but he actually means the opposite. I'm not fine. I'm really not okay. The last type of irony is called dramatic irony. And dramatic irony happens when we are reading a story, or especially when we're watching a movie, and we know that something is going to happen. Okay, like we've seen the backstory, we've seen some details that show us that something is about to happen. But a character in the movie or a character in the story doesn't know what we know. The character doesn't know what's going to happen. That creates a situation called dramatic irony. So I just love this picture down here on the left. Okay, you can see the woman and she's going down the stairs into the basement of her house. And she says, is anyone down there? And you can tell that it's night because it's dark outside and you can see the moon. Okay, this is a perfect setup for like a scary movie or a horror movie. And if you've ever watched a scary movie, you know that oftentimes there's a point in the movie where a character does something and we're like, no, don't do that. There's a monster down in the basement. No, don't open that door. Because we know that something bad is going to happen. But that character doesn't know. And it creates this incredible feeling of suspense. Okay. And that's called dramatic irony. Okay. So, and this in the second picture with the cat and the fish, you can see the cat is feeding the fish. Okay. And you can see that he's not feeding the fish food, he's feeding the fish pepper. But the fish can't see that. And probably even if they could, they can't read, right? And so the fish is saying, first he warms our bowl, now he's feeding us. You thought he wasn't friendly. Okay. Oh, and another detail here is you can see that the fish bowl is on the stove. And here's the salt next to the cat. So what's the cat doing? Well, it's really obvious to us. The cat is cooking the fish. He's got it on the stove. The stove's red. Okay, the fish bowl's getting warmed up. He's putting some salt and pepper. He's about to have a delicious meal of fish. Okay, and we can see that. But the fish doesn't know that's what's happening. The fish thinks that the cat is warming the bowl and feeding him to be nice. Okay, this is an example of dramatic irony.